This is a strategic scenario. Based on publicly available information about Houthi boarding tactics, commercial shipping in the Red Sea, and U.S. Special Operations transit procedures, this video reconstructs what could happen when pirates board the one ship they should never have touched. At 2:14 in the southern Red Sea, 11 armed Houthi fighters boarded a Panamanian-flagged container ship called the MV Stellar Horizon. Their intelligence said she was a soft target, slow, lightly crewed, carrying agricultural machinery to East Africa. A clean, easy hijack. Exactly the kind of ship the Houthis had seized a dozen times before. What their intelligence did not say, what nobody could have known, was that 9 men were sleeping in the passenger berths on B deck. 9 off-duty operators from a U.S. Marine Raider element hitching a ride home after a deployment because their scheduled military flight had been canceled. The Houthis did not board a cargo ship that night. They boarded the worst possible ship in the entire Red Sea. And in 19 minutes, 8 of them would be dead. To understand what went wrong for the Houthis, you have to understand what went right for 9 days. The MV Stellar Horizon was a 15-year-old feeder container ship, 180 meters long, crewed by 18 civilian merchant sailors, Filipino, Indian, and Ukrainian nationals. No armed security. No razor wire. The owner had judged the route low risk and saved the money. The Houthi maritime cell in Hodeidah had been tracking her for over a week. Her AIS transponder broadcast her position, speed, and heading openly as required by law. 14 knots. Predictable course. A skeleton crew. Cargo listed as agricultural equipment. Valuable, sellable, and crucially, civilian. No military escort would come for a tractor shipment. By every metric the Houthis used, the Stellar Horizon was a perfect target. What the manifest did not show, what no manifest would ever show, was that 3 weeks earlier, a U.S. military charter flight out of Djibouti had been grounded by a maintenance fault. 9 Marine Raiders, returning stateside after a 6-month rotation, had been rebooked. Not on another flight, on a commercial sea lift contract, riding as passengers in the spare crew berths of the nearest U.S.-bound vessel. A routine, unglamorous way that service members have moved around the world for a century. That vessel was the Stellar Horizon. The raiders were unarmed by regulation, their weapons crated and manifested separately in the hold. They were tired. They were going home. And at 02:14, 11 Houthi fighters came over the rail to take their ship. Here is the targeting logic that doomed them, and why it was completely rational. A Houthi maritime targeting cell scores potential ships on 4 factors. First, defensibility. Does she carry armed security? The Stellar Horizon did not. Maximum score. Second, value. Is the cargo sellable or ransomable? Agricultural machinery? Yes. High score. Third, response risk. Will a warship come? For a civilian tractor shipment under a Panama flag, almost certainly not. Low risk. Fourth, accessibility. Low freeboard, slow speed, easy to board. The Stellar Horizon's loaded freeboard was under 5 meters. Easy. Added up, and she was a near perfect score. The single most attractive target the cell had identified that month. Every factor the Houthis could measure pointed to easy. But there was a 5th factor, one that appears on no targeting matrix because it cannot be detected, predicted, or planned for. Who exactly is on board? And on this one night, on this one ship, the answer to that question was 9 of the most lethal soldiers the United States produces. Asleep, 40 feet below the deck the Houthis were now standing on. The boarding itself was textbook. 2 skiffs, launched from a mothership 4 miles out, came alongside the Stellar Horizon's stern quarter where the freeboard was lowest. Telescoping aluminum poles with hooked ladders went up against the hull. Within 90 seconds, the first Houthi fighters were on deck. They moved fast and professionally. 5 men to the bridge, taking the watch officer and helmsman without a shot. 3 to the engine room to control the ship's propulsion. 3 more to begin sweeping the accommodation block and rounding up the crew. Captain Andriy Bondar, the Ukrainian master, did exactly what maritime guidance recommends. He did not resist. He ordered his crew to comply. He had no security team, no weapons, and a simple priority: keep his 18 sailors alive until a ransom could be negotiated. It was the correct decision for the situation he believed he was in. He did not know about the passengers. The raiders had boarded quietly in Djibouti, kept to themselves, and were logged simply as supernumerary personnel. Extra bodies, no detail. The captain assumed they were off-duty contractors or company surveyors. He had not given them a second thought. At 02:19, a Houthi fighter named in this scenario only as the 3rd Sweep Team kicked open the first passenger cabin door on B deck. Inside, Master Sergeant Eli Cole, 12 years in the Marine Corps, 8 of them in the Raider Regiment, was already awake. The change in the engine note, the running feet in the passageway, the shouting in Arabic, he had heard all of it. He was unarmed. His rifle was in a crate 4 decks down. But Eli Cole had spent his entire adult life preparing for exactly the wrong situation to be unarmed in. And he was not afraid. What happened in the next 4 minutes is the reason this scenario matters. When the cabin door came open, the Houthi fighter saw what he expected: a civilian sitting on a bunk, hands visible. He gestured with his AK-47 toward the passageway. "Get up, move." Cole got up slowly, hands raised, and in the cramped space of a ship's cabin, where a long rifle is a liability, not an advantage, he closed the distance in a single step. A Marine Raider is trained in close-quarters disarmament until it is reflex. At a range of under 1 meter, against a man holding a rifle with the safety on and his finger outside the trigger guard, as this fighter's was, the operator has every advantage. Cole controlled the muzzle, drove the man into the steel bulkhead, and took the AK-47. 19 seconds. 1 Houthi down, 1 rifle gained. And now the math of the entire ship had inverted, because Cole was not alone. The commotion had woken the other 8 raiders in the adjacent cabins. The first thing Cole did was not shoot. It was open the next door and arm his team leader with the captured rifle's magazine. Within 90 seconds, 3 of the 9 had weapons. Within 3 minutes, they had taken 2 more from Houthi fighters sweeping the accommodation block, who walked into corridors expecting frightened sailors and met something they had no framework for. The raiders did not fight like a panicked crew. They fought like what they were, a coordinated assault element, clearing a structure they now treated as a building to be retaken, room by room, deck by deck. The Houthis on the bridge still did not know anything was wrong. They were about to find out. By 2:26, the 9 raiders had consolidated on C deck, armed with 5 captured AK-47s and the element of total surprise. Master Sergeant Cole organized them the way he would organize any objective: assault element, security element, and a plan to take back the 2 points that controlled the ship, the engine room and the bridge. The engine room came first. 3 Houthi fighters there, focused on the controls, never heard the raiders enter behind them. 2 surrendered immediately when they understood what had come through the hatch. 1 reached for his rifle. He did not reach it in time. The bridge was harder. 5 Houthi fighters, alerted now by the sound of gunfire echoing up through the ship, had taken cover behind the bridge consoles and were holding the captain and watch officer as human shields. This is the scenario where most armed crews would fail, but the raiders did not breach blindly. 2 of them climbed the exterior bridge wing ladder in the dark, a route the Houthis were not watching, and entered from 2 directions simultaneously. The shots that followed were precise, taken by men trained to fire past hostages at hard targets. In under 10 seconds, 3 Houthi fighters were down, 2 had surrendered, and the captain and watch officer were unharmed. At 02:33, 19 minutes after the first Houthi came over the rail, Master Sergeant Cole keyed the ship's bridge radio and broadcast a single message on the international distress frequency. Any coalition warship, this is the motor vessel Stellar Horizon. The ship is secure. We are American military personnel. "We have prisoners." The Red Sea went very quiet. Here is the lesson buried inside the scenario, the one that should change how every pirate, every militia, and every planner thinks about a soft target. On paper, the engagement was hopelessly one-sided in the Houthis' favor. 11 armed fighters who chose the time, the place, and the method of attack. 9 unarmed men, asleep with no warning and no weapons. By every measurable factor, the Houthis should have won. But warfare is not decided only by what you can measure. The Houthis optimized for the visible, the ship's defenses, her cargo, her flag. They had no way to account for the invisible, the training, the reflexes, and the will of the specific human beings inside the hull. 11 fighters with rifles lost to 9 men with none, because the 9 were Marine raiders, and the 11 did not know it. The most dangerous thing about a special operator is not his rifle. It is that you cannot see him coming, even when he is standing right in front of you with his hands raised on a ship you think you have already won.
At 3:08, an MH-60R Seahawk from a U.S. destroyer 30 miles north reached the stellar horizon. By then, there was nothing left to do but take custody of the prisoners. 3 surviving Houthi fighters were transferred, zip-tied, to the destroyer. 8 others had not survived the 19 minutes. The ship's 18 civilian crew were unharmed. So were all 9 raiders who packed their gear, returned the captured weapons to the boarding party, and continued their journey home as if it had been an inconvenient layover. Captain Bandar later said he had not known who his 9 passengers were until the moment the gunfire started below decks. The Houthi maritime cell never publicly acknowledged the operation. They could not. Acknowledging it would mean acknowledging that 11 fighters, with every advantage, had been defeated by 9 unarmed men who simply happened to be on the wrong ship at the wrong time. For the Houthis. And here is the lesson that outlasts this single scenario.
For 20 years, piracy has worked on a simple bet: that the ship is softer than it looks, that the crew will comply, that no one is coming. Most of the time, that bet pays off. But every so often, the bet is catastrophically wrong. Every so often, the soft target is the hardest target in the ocean, and there is no way to know until the door comes open. The Houthis boarded a cargo ship that night. They should have checked who bought the tickets,